7:03. Review and approve the minutes of December 2nd. Or
Motion to approve.
and a motion to
Second
approve.
that.
And a second. Any discussions or notations?
I have one. It says that I presented the financial report, but I was absent, so it wasn't me.
I presented, I was trying to give you credit. No.
Then take me out of the absent chair.
We missed you though.
Thank you.
That would have been hard to do because we were over in the other buildings. Okay, so we have an amended set. Any other comments or suggestions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
No opposition, one abstention. 301. So. Financial statement and signing of the warrants.
Okay, so tonight you have 7 warrants to sign, and they total $212,712.86. Okay, so tonight we have a little bit different report in that if you go to the bottom of page 6, that is all our totals for our general fund. And most of our payroll is encumbered in that number. So right now we have about $728,663 available. The new part is if you turn the page, I'm going to start reporting monthly on higher school choice. So you can see on this says school choice, it's fund number 003. You can see that on the left. And that's our budget for this year. And again, this is, our salaries are encumbered. So right now we're running a positive $13,832 for the year. And then hopefully next month I will have the circuit breaker fund for you, and we're going to start, we've begun putting these separate funds into our infinite vision so that we can report to them monthly on how they're doing. And that's all I have, unless anybody has any questions. I think we'll be talking about the budget later.
So we're not seeing any negative or any overages?
Well, again, this year we're only looking at them in total. So we've got individual lines over, but our bucket, if you want to call it that, are all pretty much intact.
Right.
I think we're going to have some savings possibly in one or two accounts, but it's really too early to tell. I want to get through the winter, and then we'll be able to tell what is available for repurposing. And we do have some long-term leaves coming up that might cost us a couple of dollars. So I want to get those calculated out so we can encumber that as well.
Any other questions or comments? If not. Public comment. It's a quiet group back there, just here to listen. Okay. So, unfinished. Update on the road project?
Yes, the Great Loop. The Great Loop was started in December, and I was here along with, I think, the entire police force to observe, and it worked quite well. Janine reports that we have on average about 60 cars that utilize it in the morning. We haven't had any really horrible winter challenges yet, so that remains to be seen, but I think it solved some of the problem that we had, and I don't know if you wanted to add anything
It
to
certainly
it.
gets a lot more use in the morning than it does in the afternoon. I think it's it's a pretty quick and efficient way to drop off in the morning. In the afternoon, there's some time trying to hold students and to wait for the car to come around to the lanes closest to the school. So I think what's happening is that parents are choosing to use the parking lot and the crosswalk and then wait for their child at the front, which is great too. So, but it has drastically reduced the number of cars that are on Pleasant Street at one of the busiest times. So we've gotten positive feedback from parents too.
So we appreciate the town supporting us in getting that done, and Kevin Scarborough and his crew from the town, to actually do the work. And Kevin was here to monitor it too, to see. It was a little narrower than I thought it was going to be. I thought it might have been a little wider, but it does work, and he's promised to be able to plow it completely. So.
Good. Okay. I'm glad that the expenditure of the funds has proved to be worthwhile, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to watch through the rest of the year, and then at the start of the year next year, see how it's monitored. And great. Anything else on Loop Road? Hearing none. On the update on the roof project.
We don't have a lot to tell right now. We have a special town meeting coming up. I believe it's January 25th, Mr. Gilmore. And at that time, the article will be on the warrant for approval for the funds for the town. Patty has some things I know she's been working on with the architect. And
So since the last time we met, and you guys have met since then, last time you met, Ken and I were at the town meeting, and the select board did approve the project to be submitted to MSBA. So it was submitted in December. We should hear back from them the 3rd and 4th week of January, and that will define the entire project and its scope and its budget. So we've finished the schematic design phase. In your packet tonight, you're approving the final bills for the first stage of the project. The select board has authorized us to continue work on the project so we can meet the project deadlines. And they did bill us for that, but I didn't want to pay it because they weren't really clear as to what they were billing us for. They didn't separate it. And the select board said that one of their key things was they don't want to pay for things before they're completed. So I only paid the completion part of their contracts, and I let them know today that we need to start having conference calls with all the committee so that we can all understand, because I can't assess if they've got 10% of the construction documents done. I mean, how do I assess that? So everyone has to be on board, and our project manager, they didn't even separate the first contract from the second contract, so I said, I'm not paying that. So what's in your packet tonight is just the agreed upon contract amounts from the first phase. And there is some money outstanding. Select board has approved us to pay that, but until we all sit down and have a conversation, I'm not paying any of those amounts. So our next steps will be getting our project scope and funding from the MSBA back, and then we have our special town meeting, and there's some decisions that we have to make about whether or not there's things we want to continue with that we know that, MSBA may come back and say, yeah, you can do that, but we're not paying our share. So then the select board has to decide whether or not we're going to keep those parts of the project or not, and then go forward with our funding. And I do have a set of documents that was submitted to MSBA. If anyone would like to see those, I meant to bring them tonight, and then I left them on my desk. So I can bring them next time, or if someone wants to stop by the office, I can share my binder with you.
Great.
Did you have anything you wanted to add, Mr. Kerbeck?
Well, I had seen your email correspondence today relative to the payments, and I seem to recall the design firm saying that they'd be willing to continue on with preparing the drawings without being paid.
No.
Contingent on town approvals
We had asked the select board if we could continue so that we could, and we did have money. Remember I had told them we had some money
Right.
still left in our initial fund, so the select board said, go ahead and spend it, but don't spend it ahead of what we could be. We're gonna get reimbursed for anything we pay out now from MSBA anyway. But I'm not, like I said, I'm not one to judge if they're billing me 10% completion. I don't know what 10% of construction documents looks like. So I need everybody, Kevin Scarborough and Dick Kalashevsky and Bob Lesko, and everybody to look at these and say, is this a reasonable charge at this point? Because we haven't seen anything past the initial compliance, so.
So, okay. No, I don't have anything to add except the select board was very supportive. The town's been very supportive of the whole process. I'd also like to point out that Patty's really been spearheading this effort and through her initiative got us involved with it in a program that really is beneficial to the town. It's going to pay us 50 to 52% of the cost of the project, which is a big chunk of change for our taxpayers to be aware of. This is somewhere in the neighborhood of $2.7 to $3 million in expenses, and the town may only have to pay about 1.6 of it, so it's or even less. So
I don't think I'd put only in that sentence. That's true. How do you feel about it? But only is probably not the appropriate word.
the town will have to pay
Their share of the portion, well, considerably less than they would
considerably
normally.
less than the full amount.
50%.
Yeah, considerably less than they may had to have, but, and the town shares the same, you know, as Patty's been talking, we want to see them live up to what they're saying. There's a concern that a lot of talk is not always beneficial, so show us the documents and we'll help sort out the 10% and the 90% and all that others, but we want to be cautious.
So we would encourage those in the audience that are residents of the town to attend the special town meeting and vote to support the school project.
Just show up, because if you don't have enough people,
Right, we
vote
need the
doesn't
quorum
count.
as well, so.
Yes.
And then the debt exclusion would follow, would it not? Would there be a vote? on
I
debt
don't think it'll
exclusion?
be at this event. I think it will follow in
Right.
the annual.
No, it wouldn't, okay.
Yeah, we're still. I think we've agreed that it's probably smart to do debt exclusion, but we put it through our finance committee to make sure that we're not jumping the gun.
All right. Great, so. Any questions or thoughts from you? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to the main topic this evening.
I'm going to be passing this over to Patty, but what I do want to say about the budget presentation for tonight is this is extremely rough. We have so many unknowns right now. We're in the middle of contract negotiations, so we don't know what those will look like, and it's contract negotiations for not only elementary teachers, but also elementary IAs and secondary teachers and secondary IAs. So there's a lot of unknowns. As we alluded to earlier, our health insurance costs are going up this year. We have a guesstimate on those. So we've put some figures in anticipation, not really knowing what the final one's going to be. So it may look a little higher right now than it may turn out to be in the end. But it's beginning, and pass it over to you if you're ready.
I am ready. I'm just putting my special town meeting in there. I didn't have it in there. Okay, so the first thing I want you to notice is that we have a little bit of a different format. We're going landscape instead of portrait. And the reason we're doing that is so that we don't have to keep, either going this way than this way. So we're either going to go all portrait or all landscape. The second big thing that is different is the format of our detail. So this has been what I've been trying to get to, in that it's going to look just like our monthly reports, and it also looks like our end of the year report. So that is our new format. If you don't like it, let me know. It doesn't have to be this way. If it's not to your liking the way it's presented, we can go back. I'm not married to this. It was just a goal of trying to get all reports to look the same so that we're always looking at the same information in the same format. So,
Just have one question. Is this in the extra large font? Because
yes,
I'm blind.
yeah,
the complaints
we're
from
all
last
reaching
year
a
that it
stage where
was,
we need-
exactly, the complaints from last year that, could you pick a smaller font? Well, you want all this information on the page, so.
Okay. Very
So
good.
yes,
Thank you.
I'm very sensitive to the needs of the committee.
And the old superintendent.
So as Marty alluded, this is a very, very rough first draft. So we've had our meetings with all our department heads, we've had our meeting with the principal, and there's still a lot of things that are in flux. So what I can tell you right now is that we're looking at a 3.65% increase. That's with an unnegotiated contract. It's also our health insurance. Now, the town pays for the health insurance for the Deerfield teachers, but the Deerfield schools pay for a piece of the central office benefits. And we are anticipating an increase this year of anywhere between 5 and 7%. So that's going to be a heavy hit. One of the other things that we got hit with was also we lost a grant. The kindergarten grant is going to be gone, and that paid for a portion of our early childhood director's salary. So that has to go back onto the budgets for the schools to share. So I'm going to go through each of these line items and try to get it matched up with the detail you're going to see. So our first increase would be the cost of our steps. We can, even though we don't have a negotiated contract, we can still calculate the steps, and that's calculating to be about $50,964. We have some degree changes, and that totals about $4,295. That's 2 teachers who have achieved new degrees, so they will move columns. Longevity, we've seen, we have 2 teachers that have requested their longevity benefit. We have 1 IA that's now achieved a new longevity benefit, and another IA who went to the next level of longevity benefit. So the total additions to our longevity was $6,500. The increase in changes to health, retirement, and other, that's sort of like the catch-all that I've put together. That's the increase in the health insurance. It's a retirement benefit for a retiring teacher. It's for any changes to the collective bargaining agreements. So everything's in there, and that's at $71,297. We have a teacher returning from leave of absence, and that is going to add the $54,699 to our budget. Since last budget season, we've had to add an IA, so that was at a cost of $22,727. We are going to be increasing our per diem sub rate from $65 to $75, so that's going to cost us about $6,140. And we are proposing a 1 FTE reduction in staffing, and that is through attrition. It would not be any layoffs. Then other operational, the central office expenses are increased by $6,805, and that's basically what I was alluding to you before, the cost of the early childhood coordinator. That's only split by 4. That's not split by the 5 because Frontier doesn't have early childhood, and Deerfield bears about 45% of those costs, so that's why it's $6,809. Instructional equipment, we're going up 89, and some of these things are things that we've been spending every year, but they're never budgeted for. So that's why I'm throwing them in here, because you're going to see them budgeted for now. So instructional equipment, an increase of $8,900. Those are mostly our leases on our copiers. Increase in instructional services, $16,000. These are a combination of our summer sped services that we give kids so that they don't regress in, so that's never really been budgeted for. It's also our accountability stipends for some teachers. It is also an increase to our summer reading camp. We've had more and more children attending, so that has to go up as well. Medical and health services increase $1,000, and that is partially part of the nurse leader stipend increased, and also when I met with our new nurse leader, we haven't been budgeting for things like replacing the batteries in the AED, and that's about $400. And the cost of the EpiPens are going up, so we're increasing the nursing supply line by about $500. Increase in technology, $21,092. We are going to be leasing, replacing all of our hardware, and so we already have one lease, and now we're adding the second 3-year lease so that we start cycling through. So that is our second lease payment of the first lease and the first payment of the second lease. Keep that straight. Increase in building security systems. This is one of those items we don't budget for, but it's always been taking out of our building maintenance. We pay about $11,000 a year to have our fire extinguishers serviced, to have our fire alarm monitored and all that. So that has, again, been something that we've always paid through with heating savings, but we want to get it in there and get its own line items. Then we have an increase in other expenses of $2,692. This was just a bunch of small accounts that increased $3 or $465, so I just mashed them all together. And then our custodial supplies were increasing $4,000. Again, this is a trend we've been seeing. We never raised the cost of the custodial supplies, but yet the cost of the paper towels, the toilet paper, everything else has been increasing. So we just want to get in line with what we are spending. Decreases. We have a decrease in our school committee illegal expense. That is, again, when we went with this new attorney, we were still budgeting the old fee instead of the new, so that's changed, but it's probably only going to be a 1 year because we're going to be ending that contract and starting a new one with them. The central office, your percentage went from 30.61% to 28.72%, so that's about a savings of $13,640. On also last year's budget was 262 days because of leap year for this year, and next year it goes back down to 261. So that's also the difference there. Decrease in professional development stipends, $1,200. We have 2 less teachers between last year and this year, so we're decreasing the $600. Decrease in maintenance of equipment of $5,000. Again, we haven't been spending that money, so we are going to adjust that account down, and I know I got a spelling error there. And then again, we're going to have a decrease in our out-of-district tuitions of about $38,000. This is the number that we do have some kids going up to 6th grade, but we also have a couple of kids that are in flux. So I hate to put it out there that we're going to save $38,000 and then have ownership of a child that we think is going to another town. So it's there, but that could change any moment. So altogether, we have an increase of $159,118, or a 3.65% increase.
Any questions from the assembled multitude?
I know you guys are just reviewing it for tonight, so what I would recommend is if you do have questions after tonight, email me, and then I can respond to everyone with what the question was and what my answer is, so that everybody gets the same information.
Does this include kind of your looking at what you were needing for the school? I know you were talking.
That was part of our conversation.
That was part of
Yep.
your conversation and putting that in for equipment and things like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Can I ask just a clarification
Sure.
question?
Can I ask anything you want, Mr. Fred?
It's relevant to this. So just, because of last year's season, budget season, and we had a decrease in the classroom, I'm just wondering if this budget, that line item that talks about attrition, is a continuation of that trend already in the budget, or whether that's just an attrition because somehow we're losing somebody that we're not replacing.
Well, it would be based on your vote, again, to have 2 kindergartens this year. Like if you're not gonna, so that is, we have a teacher retiring. And if the school committee is going to continue their vote in that area, that we're only gonna have 2 kindergartens, then we would be able to let the staff member go. We would not replace the staff member through retirement.
because we're now going to have 2 first grade classes?
Right.
That was my question.
Yes.
Okay.
So we have
so
2
this-
first, 2 kindergarten.
Okay, that clarifies what I was, yeah. So that process is already built into this budget. So even with that savings, you were at a 3.65 increase.
Correct.
So, and I think it's, or at least from my perspective, it's important to note that that change is enrollment dependent. If we suddenly had an influx of kindergarten students or first grade students that kept the population, what I call the native population, up at a level that still required 3 sections within our general parameters, we probably would continue that and have to re-examine this particular number, but
Correct.
I assumed that's what it was, that we were continuing the gradual progression.
Marty and Janine and I decided to present it that way because our assumption was that you would, looking at the numbers, continue on that trend.
Yes.
One of the things I do want to make the school committee aware is that even though we have 2 kindergartens this year, we are fully staffing 3 early childhood classes. And I think that is why our predictions about kindergarten have been so dead on, not just the good staff we have in our office here, but also because our kids, and it's not just Deerfield, it's all 4 towns, we are seeing more and more kids early because they're in need. They have special education needs. So our pre-K is blowing up, and it is what it is, and we have to address this. And you and Sunderland are really feeling that right now. Because you're getting the bulk of the early childhood kids in the system.
Currently, and I actually had this in my report, but I may as well bring it up now, we are keeping a close eye. We've looked at the census from looking at the kids that are currently enrolled in private and public, our public preschool. We're anticipating an incoming kindergarten class of 35 students for next year. Obviously, that could change. But the kindergarten registration packets are going to be available January 11th, and they're due back, I think, February 6th. So I'm trying to remember when our next meeting is, but we should have an idea shortly after that of what it looks like. And I do commend Janine's secretarial staff. They were terrific. The number they gave me in June or early July was exactly what showed up. So they worked very hard. But Patty is absolutely right. We are seeing this district-wide, a much more profound need earlier and earlier and earlier. And it is not just happening in our district, it's statewide. We're not sure what's exactly the cause of that, but we're seeing a very high percentage of special needs students in the 3- and 4-year-olds.
Interesting. Any other questions from folks?
I guess just another clarification on the increase in technology. Is that a percentage of a regional payment, or is that just Deerfield Elementary?
Just Deerfield.
21. That's just Deerfield. 21.
I mean, that's the trend. We keep going to technology, and we're we will try to adjust our textbook line at some point, because the textbooks, we don't really buy textbooks anymore. We're buying Chromebooks and we're buying apps. So that sort of is what replaces the textbook line. But we're trying to budget it correctly. So that's why it's called like other instructional hardware, other instructional software. And again, once we see that we're no longer spending that textbook money, we will free that up.
I had 2 questions regarding on the salary-related costs. You note the increase for the return of the LOA. Does that mean we have no one presently teaching?
No, we do.
It's an instructional
right.
assistant.
And we put them on, one, we reduced the salary,
Right.
and secondly, we had put it on school choice for the year. So
Okay.
this is bringing it back on the budget and increasing it to the person that's returning salary.
Right. Okay, so it's the combination of those things.
Yes.
And then the increase in 1 full-time equivalent instructional assistant.
That happened at the end of like 15, but we had already had the 16 budget done.
Right.
And again, I believe that was an early childhood need, so we had to add it. But it doesn't show until here, that when we look at the numbers,
Okay.
that we actually added a staff. So right now, if I remember our numbers correctly, we have 25 IAs, one tutor in the
Yeah.
building. And we've been cutting down in that, but we can't. We are at the bare minimum right now.
Sorry, you lost me on that.
Okay.
So we have an instructional assistant who's in the building now. And so the numbers, they're here now and they're gonna be here next year. There's no change in the numbers, but you're putting an extra 22,000 in
Because
next
we're
year's
spending
budget.
it.
But aren't we spending it in the budget that we have here?
We are, but it
There,
wasn't
but
budgeted.
It wasn't
was not
in the budget.
budgeted.
Wasn't, but it's in this budget now. When I read
Yes.
this, all these totals and stuff,
Correct.
it's in here.
Yes, it is.
Okay, and we're not in the negative on this budget yet.
Not yet.
Okay.
But
Not
don't
yet.
got your breath.
Not yet.
Yeah.
That's a positive thing.
So, I think,
Question,
Go ahead.
do I know what the cost of a smart board is?
It's about
About five,
$6,000
yeah.
installed.
5,000 to 6,000?
Yeah.
They're expensive.
Hmm. Do we have, is everyone using, does everyone have one that wants one? Or are we
I think
lacking them
everyone
in
has
room?
one.
I
There have been a couple requests for additional smart boards, and
I think music was hoping.
all the general classrooms do have one with the exception of preschool.
Okay,
But there is other technology that's out there that is much more cost-effective than a smart board, and it really does accomplish the same thing that a smart board does. You could probably do it for half the cost. or
Really?
less, Yeah.
I think Scott Paul is looking into
Yeah.
those options
Yeah.
right now.
Great.
Because we're, not only is it getting new smart boards, but we need to get replacement smart boards. We need a new projector, or we need new
Right.
bulbs, and they are so expensive just to
Yeah.
replace the existing ones, that we're looking for a different technology that's more maintenance friendly
yeah.
and still achieves what we need it
Upgradable,
to.
easier projection, cost affordable.
Our tech line last year was really just, we chipped away at it just from repairs for the smart board equipment.
Really?
It really ate a lot of our hardware line. Yeah.
Okay.
all right. When we go to our next meeting, could we maybe have some copies so that folks in the audience can have?
Absolutely.
We're hoping we'll also have a little firmer numbers.
Right,
that
well,
are-
that would be good.
Yes.
I'm sure the town would appreciate that. Can we forward this preliminary number along to the finance committee for their preliminary discussion? Not their
Absolutely, I can do
preliminary,
that. I'll also send an electronic
Heavily-
copy to Janine in case anyone in the building would like a copy.
Mhm. Okay,
Send them to the Board of Selectmen's office.
great.
I will. Is Mr. Finn now?
Yes.
Okay, I will do that tomorrow
As
morning.
of Friday. So,
Pretty interchangeable, they do good work, so it'll get there.
mhm.
So I'll just send it to him and he can disseminate it to select board and finance? Okay, great, thank you.
The easiest. Very good. Any questions, thoughts?
For
Yes.
the technology piece, Patty, you had mentioned the lease cost. Does that mean on current equipment, or is there
We've
any
got
new
two
equipment
leases.
coming
We've
in?
got one that we started last year.
Well, the laptops, we ended up actually purchasing those
Okay.
outright.
All right, so now what we're trying to do, what Mr. Paul would like to do, is every year replacing a certain amount, because we took a total inventory district-wide of all our technology, and so we know what the cost is. So we need to plan on replacing a percentage of that every year. Plus, we also, so that's to what's existing, plus we also want to expand. So we're looking at possibly doing another lease of Chromebooks for classrooms. And so that would be a 3-year lease. So by the time the thing becomes, hopefully, there's something better out there, the lease will be up and you guys will always start getting new technology for your classrooms on a 3-year cycle. You're welcome.
Any other? Yes.
So there was a question about, or in the budget about the reduction in, we have somebody who is retiring.
Yes.
And so that would, and if we're cutting down in a first grade classroom, that would mean, from my understanding, that there would be a shift in teachers. Last year there was a huge shift of teachers moving up and down. So would that be happening? And when would the staff be finding that out? Do we have any ideas about that?
Well, I think it's so many unknowns because we don't know if we're really going to have 2 or 3 kindergartens for next year. And I don't think we're going to have a terribly good idea about that until the registration packets are back.
There's definitely only going to be 2 first grades next year.
Well, there's only 2 kindergartens right now.
Right, so that would be yes.
That would be why there'd be 2 first grades. So,
Plus, there's a big influx of first
yeah,
grade
unless
students.
a ton of people move into
Because
town.
there's a big shift, and so teachers who have moved may be moving again, or just so it'd be nice for those staff to know sooner than later what that
I
means.
mean, I can't speak for the administration, but I would assume the administration will be in touch we'll be communicating as soon as they know, as soon as things become clear, what's going to have to take place. I mean, notifications have to be made and everything within the limits of the contracts and everything else, so that I'm sure that they'll be communicating as quickly as they can to answer that question. Yes, unfortunately, it's going to be a process. If the current population trends continue, this will be something that's going to be moving right through grades 1 through 6.
You stated that there's going to be a 5 to 7% increase in the insurance cost. Is that also on the employees portion?
That's correct.
Could you repeat the question, please?
She asked if the 5 to 7% increase in healthcare costs would also be on the employee share,
Yes.
and the answer would be yes. I mean, we
But-
share
the-
equally in the burden of the cost. I mean, your percentage remains the same, so if it goes up 5 to 7%, your share will go up that same 5 to 7%. It won't be.
I'm confused. The teachers are under the town's policy
That's
and
correct.
yours, we haven't figured out what the teachers are going to get, but you will get the share of whatever. They're projecting a 5 to 7% in the administration, in the what do you call your office?
Central office.
Central office, which isn't the same as the teachers. So we've been very good at keeping the rate considerably lower and keeping the services the same. So we're hoping that we're going to keep it in that area again.
But Marcus, it's the same insurance. We're both with Hampshire County. So the percentage of so I think that you guys pay 60/40, or are you 70/30? I'm not, 65/35. That's not going to change.
No.
But the premium cost is going to go up 5 to 7%. So everybody's going to feel that, both on the town side and the employee side.
Okay, well, as you explained, it was separate, that your central office was different
Right.
when you put the presentation out.
Yeah.
Correct, because
We're
it's
not
a,
predicting that high of a change in policy. I may be just behind the eight ball, so I apologize if I am. But
we'll find out next week. The meeting with the IAC is on the 13th at your town hall. So we will definitively find out on the 13th.
Okay, yeah.
I can just say I'd be very happy to have a 5 to 7% increase.
There are some plans that are going up
Mhm.
close to 20%. So our plan is really fairly reasonable compared to.
And let me tell you that the reason that it's all coming this year is because the Hampshire County Group Insurance Trust has been really good in not raising our rates for several years. We went 3 years with 0%, and that was because they had reserves in the trust, and they were paying for the premium increases with some of the reserves. Now, because our insurance is being more utilized, our utilization rates are up, which then drops your reserve. So the money's not in the reserve to cover the costs. So we're going to get hit all at once, and that is what's happening. So it's inevitable, but like you said, Mr. Cutterback, we're lucky it's only 5 to 7, and we did go 3 years with 0.
Mm-hmm.
So is that 5 to 7 a commitment for 1 year or 3 years?
I don't, right now, it's 1 year. It's year to year.
Any other questions that we can answer or try to answer, have answered for you tonight, or at least alerts that we can have that the administration can work on for providing answers for you? Yes.
You said that the budget was going to go 3.65% increase?
Correct.
What has it been in the past years, and has the Finance Committee cut that, approved it?
It varies from year to year. Last year, we were at just over 2.5%. I think we were at 2.65%. No, not even that high? Or,
No, I think it was 2.6.
yeah, 2.6. That's what I meant,
Yep,
2.6.
yep,
2.6?
The year before, I think we were under that.
I think we are under that.
I think we were in the 1 point something range, but
1.5.
yeah.
So this is a hefty increase then?
Well, it's hard to say because in any given budget year, it's largely contingent on reductions and what might be in there for reductions. The budget we're looking at, for instance, there's $148,000 in salary-related increases. And I'll focus on salaries primarily because that's the biggest portion of our budget and the one that has the biggest impact. That $148,000 has been reduced by $69,000 from $217,000 by the expected attrition of one position in the school. If we didn't have that, we'd be looking at a 5.2% increase. So it all relates to who might be retiring, what we might be replacing people with. It's a balancing act every year. And 2 years ago, when it was 1.5%, I can't remember all of the events that were going on, but we had a substantial decrease in fuel and heating costs.
We didn't have a health insurance cost.
We didn't have
Contract
any.
was already settled.
Right.
So
There were factors that entered into it to hold it down to 1.5%, and we were able to accomplish that with the help of the finance. But the Finance Committee works very closely with us. We're the largest impact in the town.
Right, I know that.
On the town's budget.
Right,
So,
that's why I'm here.
yeah, this is the starting point, and the conversations go on for the next 2 meetings.
So that number, 3.65, could go either way?
Yes.
It
Yes.
could go either way, yes. Very definitely, at this point in time. We're
So-
usually a little farther along at this point in the year, but as Marty and Patty are saying, there are a lot of unknowns right now. We've got contract negotiations going on. We've got health insurance-related costs and other things that aren't yet set, so that we don't have some really hard numbers. But, I mean, this is a fairly good first pass. And, you know, you can't be thrilled with 3.65%, but I don't see a lot of areas that we can do much about. Most of them are fixed. They're contractual obligations of that $148,000 in salary-related increases. 70,000 of it are contractual. 71,000 is health insurance related.
And that's also a retirement benefit
Right.
and any other changes.
Mhm.
I did just, the 3 years that I have on my computer, 16, we had a 2.5% increase. 15, it was 2.23.
Oh, it was
And
2.2.
14 was 2.5.
Oh,
So
okay, so
since
that's
I've
okay.
been here, we've kept it at 2.5.
Right,
But we've struggled to do that.
right. And that's what we tend to do. We usually start with this first pass, come back, and if we see anything that we'd like the administration to address, we raise it now. I'm not hearing anything right now. And the Finance Committee will give us an idea of what they think they can afford, and then we come back to the table again next month, and then we have a public hearing.
All right, well, maybe this is too early a question, but school of choice for the school district receiving students, that's a losing proposition.
For the district receiving students?
Right. Out of town, out of
Yeah,
district.
and this is a common conception in town that it's a losing proposition. And
Isn't it?
No, not necessarily. It would all depend. If you have a situation where you have if we were in a position where we had 2 classes in every grade, and we had a population that there were slots available within the classes, we're paying for the staff and faculty and everything else to support those 2 classes. And if we can bring in the revenue by adding 2 or 3 or 4 students in a grade, we do it. What's happened in the past is that we have maintained our school population at around 440 students, essentially by utilizing school choice. So what the committee did last year was we started to say we're going to staff to support our native population. If there are school choice available slots within the existing classrooms for our, including our resident population, then we will offer school choice. If they aren't available, we're not going to add school choice slots and keep the added faculty and staff in place. A lot of what you're saying is, if you take our total budget divided by the students, you might come up with a number of around $13,000 or $14,000 a year.
That's where I'm going with my thinking.
Right. That is a number that says that's what it costs to educate this number of students. But if we add 4 or 5 students to the equation and we don't add any staffing or any additional services or anything else, that number is going to go down. The average cost per student is going to go down. You're not going to be paying $8,000 more to educate additional students.
Let me just take that one step further, because I think where a lot of people get this misperception is you're taking the total amount of the budget, dividing it by the number of students. But what we really have to do is take out our fixed costs, because regardless of school choice students or not, we're still going to turn the lights on, we're still going to heat the buildings. So you have to take out of the total spending your maintenance costs, because those are going to exist. And when you want to do a comparison, you can only look at your instructional costs, because the school choice kids are not causing us to add administration. It's not causing it to add to the building costs. It's truly only the instructional piece. So you want to look at it at those accounts in the instructional. And while he brought that up, that's a good point, is part of the reason that this budget is at 3.65 is because now, because we didn't accept as many kindergarten choice as we normally do, our money is going to be reduced next year, so we have to put some more money back on the town budget because we don't have it in school choice to fund it, because that is going to be reduced. I will have those numbers for you. I'm still working on them and parsing them out, and I will have what we'll be able to use school choice for. Just remember, what we're looking at tonight is only our town side. We've got more staff that's on school choice and on circuit breaker, and we need to look at that and make sure that we're going to have enough to fund that. And that's why I'm saying this is a very rough number, because if the money's not in the school choice, there's more costs that may need to come back onto this budget. If we keep getting these pre-K kids like we are getting, those costs are going to go up. And those are our students. We get them from age 2.9 to 22. That's our responsibility.
You were going to say
Well,
something?
I think Pat has kind of answered this. The central administration then is capping appropriately where caps need to be. For example, X number of students in this grade, Y number of students in that grade. The administration is capping that so that it doesn't exceed that.
Correct. But we make the recommendations to the school committee.
Okay.
That's why they have us, so that we can make recommendations to them about the instructional needs of the school. And that's why we work with the building principal and the administration and the central office.
I mean, I don't have the comparative figures, but I can say that we have 415 total students pre-K through 6 in the schools, of that total, this year, 97 are school choice.
We were over 100 last year.
Right, we were over 100, and we have one tuitioned in student in first grade, so.
At this time, at this month, last year, we had 438 students. We now have 416. So the enrollment, if the school committee continues with their proposal, will probably go down by 15 to 17 students every year.
But with that 117, not 117, but as the 95 students go down, that $500,000 in school choice funds goes away, starts to decrease, which, as Patty was pointing out, means that things that we've funded through school choice funds now will be coming back to the town budget.
Because we can't get rid of it with their needed services. But, and this is exactly what I'm working at. Last year, we had 100 students. This year, they're giving us credit for 88, yet we're reporting 97. So that's what I'm trying to reconcile, to figure out, is this a good estimate that they're giving us for next year, for this year, or is it going to increase in June? Because why is there, I take the 100, less my 6th graders, plus my new kids, and I'm coming up with 93. And they're giving me credit for 88, and Janine's saying we have 97. So it's like, okay, so I've got to sit down with her school choice list and compare them to the names here and see, are they still here or who they are? And I'll have that done by the next time we meet. So Jean, note, I need a list of all the names.
Gotcha.
So, great questions. Thank you for asking.
Thank you for the compliment.
So, anyone else? Okay. No votes required. Reports, committee chairman. I have no report. Anything from the collaborative?
Collaborative will meet again at the end of the month. I know I've been getting messages from them about licensure programs for teachers and all of that, registration coming to an end. So I know I've been passing that info on, and you've been sending it
Very
around.
helpful.
So
Thanks, Charlie.
sure, I'll have more to report probably on the 3rd when we meet again.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you. Janine?
All right. A couple of exciting things that I wanted to share with you. One is that and you should have a copy of the report in front of you. We are now offering a gluten-free alternative at our lunches. And I really want to commend Charlie Cornish, who is our cafeteria manager. Marty and I have talked about this. And I just kind of want to give you a historical perspective. He had a parent that contacted him, and just through conversation, the parent was sharing how her son, she wanted to take her son off of the lunch account because he recently was diagnosed with celiac disease and wouldn't be able to be provided a school lunch. But Charlie worked with this parent to be able to learn about gluten-free alternatives, learn about the difference between celiac disease and gluten-sensitive folks, and really did a lot of homework on this. He actually contacted some manufacturers to look at products that we could offer in our cafeteria. He trained the staff that are in the cafeteria about any preparation procedures and whatnot to be able to make sure we were still within the guidelines of serving food. Right. And we're now offering gluten-free alternatives. And it was really important to Charlie to ensure that every single child in the school could have an opportunity to have a school lunch. So I think it's a terrific thing that he did, and he's been fabulous working with parents from the time that he started working here. So we're lucky to have him.
Yeah, I applauded his initiative and thoughtfulness to do that totally on his own, just out of a desire to make sure that every child had as many opportunities and options to choose from. So I was very pleased with that.
It's a home run that we have someone that's not just thinking about food, but he is truly putting the students first and not the lunch menu.
That's great. Very nice to hear.
We talked about the traffic loop already, that's on that report, but I also wanted to share with you archery for 5th and 6th grade students. So last year, Sue Scott and Tom Scalzo kind of came to me and presented this concept to me about archery. And what they had to do was complete a training that was done by the Mass Wildlife, and they would achieve the certification by the National Archery in Schools program. And I have kind of outlined here for you on your form some of the things that they had to learn about setting up a safe range, determining your dominant eye, coaching techniques, all the safety orientation pieces. So what their hope is to do and what they're planning on implementing is a unit for the 5th and 6th grade students that will take place between January 25th and February 5th. And they will be involved in learning about archery and how to draw a bow and do it safely. And it talked about, which was interesting, it says that organization rates archery more accident-free than every sport, every ball sport with the exception of table tennis. But some of the objectives that are listed in the skills on your form I think are pretty amazing, and I see it being something that's highly motivating for students. And each class over the 2 weeks will be able to be involved in 4 classes to learn about archery. And no, we will not be putting apples on people's heads and shooting them off. But I think it's pretty cool and very exciting. And Sue Scott has done it in other districts. She works in 2 other districts. And when I shared it with Marty, you had mentioned that it had been done in the past.
Yeah, it had been done for years at Frontier. I know when my kids were there, they did it. And I don't know when it went away or why it went away, but this may revamp it to come back in the middle and high school. Because it was a great sport.
And then there's one more item, Clay.
So our annual PTA-sponsored spelling bee is coming up. It's on Friday, January 29th.
There's a typo on your report. It's not the 15th, it is the 29th.
And it's at 6 p.m. It's always a lot of fun. It's an event that's student-driven, and there's usually food and good times to have by all, whether you're participating or just cheering someone on or just there to share the experience. So I urge you guys to come and check out the spelling bee.
This particular event, I don't know if it's our third, maybe our third
think
or
it's
fourth.
third.
Yeah. It really came from a proposal from a child, from one of our students. And I always think that's pretty great when they take the initiative and say, this is really important to me. And they outlined some of the things that they wanted, how they wanted to see it evolve, and we talked about the competitive nature of it, and the PTA completely supported it. So I'm really impressed.
Really fun.
The child is still here in the school last year, but it's a really well-attended event. So if you can make it, please stop by.
Yes.
And that's all we have. Any questions?
Great.
Thank you. Superintendent's report.
Yes, I've actually talked about a couple of these things, but as you know, we are contract negotiations for both the elementary teachers and instructional assistants began on October 21st. We have continued to meet at least 3 times a month in hopes of trying to meet 3 times a month in hopes of coming to an agreement. And I would like to publicly thank our committee members who have given up countless evenings for this. It's an important endeavor. And lucky us, the Department of Ed selected our district for an accountability review. Imagine my surprise and pleasure at receiving this notice sometime this spring. And all districts in the state at some time or another take part in it. And in order to prepare for this event, we had to complete a district self-assessment, which included responding to 142 standards and elements, uploading all supporting documentation to DESE, and I'm pleased to say that we did upload and report 250 pages. Our submission was received on December 14th, and actually I did hear today from the department that they are coming to visit March 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th. So we will look forward to that. They are going to review our curriculum and assessment standards. So, yes, Patty's happy because her portion of finances was not chosen. Anyway, we have distributed through email online surveys, and we've sent them to staff and parents in order to obtain information about the early release Fridays. The results are due by January 18th. We are going to compile all of the results that will be part of our presentation for the joint meeting on January 28th to the school committees. We're keeping, as I said before, a really close eye on the incoming kindergartners. The birth records indicated 38. Right now, we actually have accounted for 35. 3 have since moved out of town. So once we have the registration packets by February 6th, we'll have a better idea of how firm that number is. So that's what I have.
I was wondering, how many kids are in kindergarten class now?
We have 2 classes, and I believe it was 19 and 18.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
It's 37 total.
And it's close. That's why we sort of held our breath all summer,
Right,
to be honest with you.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So, any other items for the committee this evening? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
In a second. And a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.